I'm going to do an animated mask on the letter T. Now to create the T, just get the type tool. I'm going to hit T and change the color to black, and I'm going to adjust the size over here in the character tab as opposed to the scale. And when you're working with type, it's best to get the type the size that you want here, because you want to keep your scale property alone for the moment, because you don't want this to be set to 300 scale and then that be your starting property when you try and do scale adjustments. Now, so I get the letter nice and big. Right. And when you've done, when you've written a piece of text on screen, to turn it from editable text into a shape or an object that you can start working on with masks and things like that, you just need to hit the return key on the numeric keypad, which does what's called committing the text. So it commits the text to a shape. You can see it has its anchor point and its transform box. So that's just getting the text on screen. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the T so that it grows up from the bottom of the T up towards the top. And to do that, I just need to get my rectangle tool and draw a rectangle around the T itself. So I'll zoom in so I can get a good look at it, and now I'll click and drag and draw. Now it applies the mask, which is fine, but at this stage I want to be able to see the T and the mask outline so that I can see that it's actually covering the right part of the T. So to do that, I'll change the mode on the mask from add to none. Now you'll see that I am in fact missing some bits, and I can go back in and modify it. I'm also going to change the color of the mask to kind of a magenta so that I can see it against that light white background. So I can go back in now and I can double click on a vertex and just pull that down. I can zoom in more just to see that I've got it nicely covering the edges of the T. Okay, so that looks okay. Zoom back out, and that's fine. So when I go back now and set this to add, you'll see that it just shows that center part of the T. So I can start animating now. I'm going to leave it set to none just so that I can still see what's going on. And because the mask currently shows the T kind of at full height, or having grown, if you want to think of it that way, I'm going to put a keyframe recording this at 2 seconds. And I'm going to open up the mask path, or the mask properties, and start the keyframing on mask path. So this is going to be the end of the mask's animation. So that's why I'm going out 2 seconds, so that it's going to end at this point. When I bring the playhead back to the first frame, I can now select the top 2 vertices and simply drag those down until they are pretty much at the base of the T, so that when I keyframe it, it will show them animating upwards. Now, I might change this to green, actually, it might be easier to see. Okay. So this is effectively the first part of the T animation. So when I change that back to add and render it out with a RAM preview, you'll see it masks up the text. Now the second part is where this gets to the top, and then the T starts to grow outwards. So again, I'm going to change this back to none, and what I could do is I could draw a new mask around the center part of the T and then animate that outwards. But because I already have a mask that is pretty well lined up here with the top of the T, then it costs me nothing to just duplicate this and rename it to top, and change the shape of that mask. I'll change the color of it as well just to make it easier. So I'll make it red. Select the bottom 2. Oh, I've got the wrong one there. Yeah. just double click on it to bring those two up there, and just leave it roughly there. Should be fine. Now I have this at a point where I can just kill all those keyframes and start a new keyframe here, and then go out 4 seconds and double click that again to open it up as a single kind of transformable object, and then by holding down Command and dragging the left one out, it will drag them out at both sides, allowing me to modify it symmetrically across the top. So now I can see what's going on here. Now I'm going to set these both to add, and you'll see that it's going to look a little bit peculiar. So what I have here is I've got my first mask doing its thing, but the entire time the mask at the top is just sitting there waiting to go, which is no good. Now there's a couple of ways that I can get around this, but the easiest way to get around this is to bring the playhead to the keyframe where the top mask becomes active. Go 1 frame backwards by holding down the Command and left arrow key, and changing the mask opacity, in this case to 0, and I will in fact have to go 1 frame to the right again now, actually, just to change that back to 100. The result being that because the mask opacity is set to 0 prior to when it starts to animate, it won't actually show anything until its opacity is set to 100 just before it starts to animate. Okay, so when I render this out now, or do a RAM preview, you'll see that it does pretty much what I expect it to do. Now I might just change the timing, just because the animation at the top part is a little bit too slow. And there you have the T doing its thing. Okay, so this is very straightforward because we have 2 straight lines. I chose T intentionally here just to give a really easy example. Now S is more complicated, and I'll actually cover that in a separate video now, so I'll just finish this.